Okay, hello everybody again. Why does nobody wave back? Come on, wave. Yes, at least some of you are still awake. Excellent. So, by the way, you've all seen the hashtag, right? #DORS CLUC. Use it, use it, use it. Post pictures, social media. You know, the people next year can look back and see, hey, there was some cool stuff last year. Let's go again. So I think it's a great conference, and thanks for being here and inviting me and the other speakers. I think it's awesome. I'm enjoying myself, so keep that up. So I'm going to talk about privacy and about ownCloud. First about me. I already talked to you yesterday, but I'll introduce myself again. That's where I come from, or actually at least my parents come from there. It's a little island in the southwest of the Netherlands. My grandparents were farmers. My dad was a salesman, and well, I do open source stuff. There's maybe some logic there, but I haven't found it yet. Open source started for me as a hobby for about 10 years. After that, I got a job at SUSE as community manager, which I did for about 4 years. And now I am community manager at ownCloud, where I talk a lot about ownCloud, open source, privacy, free software, and all these interesting things. And I live in Berlin. So I'm going to talk about the cloud. I mean, Hans already talked about websites and issues with privacy and security. I'm going to go a little deeper on that subject. I mean, the cloud has really good things. So, of course, I'm going to talk a little bit about the good side of cloud technology and, having our stuff up there somewhere. But I'm also going to talk about the downsides of it and the value of privacy, why it matters, why it's important for people. I have a little under 30 minutes. If you have any questions at any time, you can wave at me. You've just practiced it, so please use that new skill and interrupt me with questions if you have any. At the end, I have a little bit, of course, about ownCloud and about federation, which is a way to connect different clouds and make them act like one. This is quite interesting technology that's coming now, and you should know about it, so I will talk about it. But let's start with why the cloud is so awesome. Now, I don't think I really need to tell you. I mean, we have the big companies, Google, Microsoft, YouTube, Gmail, Facebook, Dropbox. And, they're great. I mean, seriously. I mean, I can, use WhatsApp and Facebook to communicate with my family and friends. Suddenly it becomes easy to organize like a school reunion because you find everybody on Facebook quite easily. This used to be a pain, right, organizing a school reunion. I'm sure most of you don't recognize, but if you wanted to do that in the 80s, good luck finding everybody, right? That was really difficult. You had to call and ask for probably weeks. And today it's like Facebook. You'll find each other's friends, and soon enough you have everybody back. And this is cool stuff. And Dropbox makes sure that if you have a laptop and a desktop and more devices, you always can get at your files. This is great. This is genuinely useful, really good stuff. So, we use all this stuff simply because it helps us. You can get work done quicker, easier, and faster than before. So it's nice, and this is great. I mean, your data is accessible everywhere. If my Android phone would break today, I'll buy a new one, and it'll synchronize, and all my stuff is back. I didn't lose anything. And that's just awesome. That's a good thing, and I think we should be happy with that. I mean, you can play games online, you back up all your stuff, your pictures are safe, at least relatively safe, and you can easily share documents with other people, and it's all free or very cheap, right? I mean, you don't pay money for Google, usually you don't pay for YouTube, and you use it. That's great. So, make no mistake, this is all good stuff, and I'm genuinely very happy with it, and you should be too. It's good stuff. But of course, there are downsides. I mean, I already mentioned, it's free, but that makes no sense. I mean, Google makes billions, and if you're not paying, then you're not a customer. I mean, it's very simple. If you are not paying, you can't be the customer. You have to be something else. Probably, in this case, you're the product. You are what's being sold to the companies that are actual customers of Google, which is usually advertising companies. And that's how Google makes money, by selling you and your stuff to these companies. I mean, ask these questions. Where is my data? Where are these pictures? Where is all the stuff that my Android phone syncs with the cloud? FSFE has this nice poster that says there is no cloud. There are only other people's computers. And this is very true. There is no cloud, there are computers, and there's somewhere, big data centers, they're owned by somebody, and that's where your stuff is. And by using it, you have agreed with a bunch of rules that you probably have no idea what they said, but I can tell you it's not pretty. It doesn't guarantee anything about your data other than, well, they can do with it what they want, but you have no rights left, pretty much. So you don't know how it's used, you don't know who has access to it, and this data is pretty valuable. This is the key here. I mean, why would you care? Right? I mean, if my phone breaks, I get all my data back. Do I care that somewhere in the meantime somebody else could look at that data? I mean, does it bother me? I mean, sure, if it's my credit card data, I care. But I don't put my credit card data on my phone. I have my credit card in my pocket, okay? So what am I losing by the mere fact that somebody else has access to the pictures I take and send to my family and friends and my wife and heck, my dog? Do I care? Is this an issue? Well, the question is, you know, do you have something to hide? That's always what people say. Look, I have nothing to hide. I don't care. Well, I would argue that actually you do have something to hide, and you should have something to hide. But I'm also going to argue that this isn't really the real question. This is not really what it's about. All three. So what do you have to hide? Let's talk about that. So in the United States, I mean, I haven't looked it up for Croatia, but I'm sure it's not that different. There are 27,000 pages with federal statutes and 10,000 administrative regulations. That's a lot of rules and laws. And, you know, this is a country that really hates big government. So I'm pretty sure that in Europe and in countries like Croatia and Germany and Sweden and the Netherlands, there are way more rules. Now, I don't know how many rules of these you know. I mean, you probably know you shouldn't drive through a red light. But in the United States, for example, there are states where it's illegal to carry a live lobster around. Now, I'm sure very few people are aware of this fact. Yeah? And is in Washington State right now, no, it's in Washington, the city, it's illegal to be smelly. Seriously, if you smell, they can lock you up if they want to. And that's just a few of these rules, and there are lots and lots of very interesting, weird rules among all these. Yeah? I mean, what's the issue with that? Well, you don't know all these rules. And you're probably breaking them all the time, but come on, that's not a big deal. Who cares about that? Well, probably nobody. Until, of course, maybe you do something that, you know, a cop doesn't like, and he's seeing you break one of these rules, and then they can stop you. Okay, that's annoying, right? I mean, if this cop has, like, I don't know, a relationship with your ex-girlfriend, you know, there could be a problem there, right? That there are definitely reasons why somebody could abuse these rules. If you're a local activist and you do stuff the local government doesn't like, they could probably tell the cops, look, keep an eye out for this guy, and if you see him do something wrong, well, I'm sure the cops know more of these rules than you do, so they will probably frequently be able to find something that you do that they don't like. Okay, fair enough, that's a bit of an issue. But this becomes a much bigger issue if everything you do 24/7 is being tracked and being stored forever, or at least for a very long time, and can be checked out. Because suddenly, if 5 years from now you do something that the local government doesn't like, they can go to Google, they can demand all your data, they can dig through it until they'll find a few things that are illegal for one way, reason or another, and they can lock you up. This is not necessarily so far-fetched, because you just heard 2 of these rules, and there are plenty more that are equally weird and ridiculous. And I'm sure, again, that the same goes for this country. There's plenty of stuff there, if they really want to, and they, being anyone who has access to this data, they can get you in pretty big trouble. And anyone with access to this data, that's a lot of people. A lot more than you think. Yeah? I mean, again, this is about a couple of years from now. Maybe not today, but in the future. And all this data is being stored. The Dutch know a little bit about this. The Netherlands is the country where the largest percentage of Jews was deported from in World War II. They got more, percentage-wise, in the Netherlands than in any other country. Why? Well, the Dutch local municipalities, they recorded in their extensive records, among other things, whether somebody was a Jew or not. That wasn't a problem in 1932, but it became a problem in 1940 because the only thing the German occupation troops had to do was to go to the local municipalities, ask for a list of all the Jews, go to their houses and pick them up. And we made it extremely easy for them, 5, 6, 10, 20 years later, after we started to record this stuff, to abuse this information. So, and why did we record this information? Probably wasn't even relevant. It wasn't really needed for anything. It was just, let's store it. What harm can it do? Well, a lot of dead people today. Yeah? So this is not totally theoretical, to put it mildly. This has gone wrong in the past, and it will go wrong in the future. I'm pretty sure about that. So you do have things to hide, not because they're illegal or really morally wrong, but they can be abused in many ways, in ways you don't know today and you might find out tomorrow. So the second side of this is it's not just that you have things to hide even though you don't know, but it's not a bad thing to have things to hide. It's a good thing. You should have. I mean, in a society, it is healthy if people can disagree with things and can break the rules. You might think, well, why would it be good to break the rules? I mean, stealing is wrong and murdering is wrong. Well, I'm not really talking about those things, because it's good, of course, that we stop those things and that it's easy to find people who murder or kill or steal. Right? I mean, sure, we should have a system where the police can find information so they can catch these people. But take sodomy, as in, two men having sex with each other. There are a lot of places where this is illegal. Now imagine that in all societies, it would be absolutely impossible to break the law because the government will find out. There would be no gay relationships. Everybody would be very, very good at hiding it, because otherwise they would be in jail. It also means that it will probably never change. Nobody will ever see two men walking too close together, because, that might end them up in jail. Nobody will ever hear or talk about two men having a relationship or two women. Suddenly, something that we now, in more and more countries in the world, are making legal, and even allowing gay marriage and things like that. And we're all realizing that there is nothing unnatural or evil or immoral about it. But it used to be illegal. So if we would have had a perfect system for finding people who do anything illegal, this would never have changed. We would never had a chance as a society to realize that we were wrong about this. And there are many other things like that. I mean, slavery is another example. Most people today realize that there's something wrong with slavery, but that was not the case a few hundred years ago, and it might not have changed if there was no way, to ever do anything wrong. A society needs to allow some civil disobedience. We can protest, and sometimes the government forbids you to protest, and you do it anyway. That should be possible, I think. You might hang up posters for some cause. Well, that might be illegal. You do it anyway, and is that such a bad thing? I don't think so. It should be possible. Yeah? So it's very often the case that things change in society first, and then the laws change. If you make it impossible to break the law, you stop progress in many ways. And sometimes you might not want people to break the law, but there are cases where it's not a bad thing. There are lots of laws that are ridiculous, including walking around with a raw or live lobster. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a ridiculous rule, and nobody is ever going to get locked up for doing it. And that's good. And the third thing is, even talking about having something to hide, whether you should or whether you do, The thing is that privacy goes further than that. Privacy isn't about doing bad things. John Oliver recently made it pretty clear when he interviewed Edward Snowden. John Oliver being an American comedian and Edward Snowden being the guy who revealed all the spying that the NSA did. And John Oliver asked Snowden some questions about all the spying that the NSA did, and well, Edward knows a lot about it, so he started to explain all these spying programs, and John said, come on, this is boring. Nobody cares. And to prove his point, he showed videos of a couple of people in New York who were being asked, who is Edward Snowden? Half of them said, I have no idea. The other half thought that he might have had something to do with WikiLeaks. Well, that's a sad thing, and Edward did not like that much, obviously. So then John said, let's ask them what they think about all the spying that the NSA does. And everybody said, well, pretty much that's a good thing, right? I mean, we need to stop terrorists and thieves and murderers and all that stuff. Fair enough. But one of the things that Snowden, of course, discovered is that pretty much none of this spying has anything to do with terrorism or murder or any criminal activity at all. It's mostly about economic motives. It's about making money and putting pressure on people who do things that the government doesn't like. So how do you explain this to people? Well, John Oliver had a pretty good idea. Dick pics. You know dick pics? Pictures of a penis that apparently some men sent to their girlfriends. And of course, the NSA has access to that too. And this certainly upset the same people who didn't really care about the government spying. They said, wait a second, this is not cool. The government shouldn't have access to the pictures I send privately to my wife or the pictures that my wife sends to me. This is not cool. One of them even said, well, I sent a dick pic last week. The NSA has access to that? Dude, that's awful. But this is the thing. It is not just about, things that you might think about. It's not about politics. It's about very simple, basic things that get to all of us. We're human beings. We need privacy. Why do you lock the toilet when you go to the toilet? Are you doing anything illegal? No, you don't. But you don't want people to see it. That's obvious, right? It's not really about illegal things. It's about what people need. And we need privacy as human beings. They've done lots of experiments. If people know they're being watched, they change their behavior. They act differently. Not a lot. But they'll walk a little bit more upright. They're a little bit more careful. I mean, you change when people are looking at you. If you walk outside, there's a group of people sitting somewhere, you feel awkward. This changes you. It's not really that you do anything illegal. You're just walking by, but still, you realize people are looking at you, and that doesn't feel right. If we would have pervasive surveillance, which we do already to quite a bit, and it'll get more and more, this is going to change us. Right? We're probably all going to behave maybe a little bit better in some ways, but as I already pointed out, this is not necessarily a good thing. You need to be able to be yourself occasionally. It's a human need. I mean, we have a need to show the world who we are. I mean, look at your Facebook account. Look at the pictures you put on there. You put on there the pictures that you were at a party, and of course you carefully select the nicest picture, the one you look good in. You don't put in the picture of the next morning because, that's embarrassing, right? We all try to create a certain image of yourself. This is what we do. We're human beings. We're people. We try to control how other people see us. Well, this is being damaged. We are losing the ability to control how other people see us. That's not cool. And it's not just not cool, it is not good. It hurts us as human beings. So again, privacy goes much deeper than, I have nothing to hide. It's very fundamental to who we are as human beings. We have a need to control how other people see us. And we're losing this. That's important. Yeah? So, this is the key here. Yeah? Privacy is being eroded. And the question you should ask yourself is, okay, if privacy disappears, well, for who does it disappear? I mean, government transparency is a bit of an issue, right? We often don't know what the government is doing. I mean, if there's no more privacy, would we know what the government does? No. I mean, the government has a lot of money and a lot of people, and they can make sure that there's good encryption, and they can make sure that their privacy is just fine. You still won't know what the government is doing. This will not increase transparency in our society. Okay, companies. Does this change what we can see of what companies are doing? Can you suddenly much easier find out what Shell is investing in and what other oil companies are doing in some countries in the world? Where your mobile phone comes from? Probably a lot of the materials your phone is made from are mined in Africa and poor countries where children are basically trying to get these metals out of very dangerous mines. We kind of know this, but will that become more transparent? No. Because these big companies, they have the money and the resources to protect their privacy. They will make sure you don't know. This will not change for them. Privacy doesn't hurt big companies. Okay, criminal organizations, arms dealers, big crime syndicates, drug traffickers. Will we be able to see what they're doing? Will the government have an easier time catching these big criminal organizations? Will we have, less corruption? No. Because again, they have the money, they have the resource to protect themselves. And all this spying does not impact big criminal organizations. It might impact somebody who in a fit of rage, killed his wife. And I guess it's good to pick those people up, but then again, they probably won't do it again. Right? These kind of sudden crimes, they're not really impacted here. Terrorists then, does all this spying, does this do something about terrorism? Will the NSA be able to stop terrorists from attacking us and blowing up schools and churches? No. Because again, terrorists, they have lots of money. If you look at ISIS, they have massive amounts of money. They have airplanes. These organizations, they can protect their privacy. They will be able to communicate without the government spying. So none of these spying programs, none of these, erosions of privacy will do anything against governments, corrupt politicians. They won't stop criminal organizations. They won't stop terrorists. The only people who have problems with it is us, normal people. Because we don't have the knowledge and the resource to protect our privacy anymore. Heck, it's even illegal at some point. Grassroots political organizations. If there's a local group of people who tries to stop a park from being demolished, well, the government will know everything about them. And they for sure will be able to find out who the leaders are and find out ways to stop them and throw them in jail for one thing or another. And there you go, the park will be demolished. This is the kind of stuff that will, be impacted when privacy disappears. Annoying journalists, local charities. Not evil governments, because they can control this. And this stuff is happening. Suddenly we will become transparent to big companies, to criminal organizations, to drug traffickers. In Mexico, a few years ago, not even that long ago, a doctor who often worked on the emergency care in the hospital, she had a Twitter account. And she used a Twitter account to tweet about all the criminal organizations you have there. You have these big, drug cartels that often fight and kill people. So, when patients came in, she would tweet about that. Hey, there's another shooting in this neighborhood. Hey, this drug cartel is doing that again. And people would follow that and, put pressure on politicians. And, these drug cartels were not happy with it. So they managed to figure out who it was. At some point, the Twitter account stopped tweeting until after a couple of days, there was a picture of her head. Just that. And that was a pretty powerful message. You have no privacy, so we kill you. This is the kind of stuff you can expect when our privacy disappears. It won't stop a few terrorists, but it will give criminal organizations, foreign governments, and our own government a lot of power over us. And they will abuse it. Someone will, for sure. I like this quote, so I'll just let you read it for a minute. So the question then is, or ought to be, what do we do? Well, there are a lot of things you can do about this. First thing is, of course, politics. I mean, we need to put pressure on politicians to not mandate, for example, backdoors in our security. Because if you have a backdoor in a security mechanism, it's not secure. And that backdoor will be abused, not just by the government themselves, but also by companies, criminal organizations, foreign governments. Because you can't have a security mechanism that has a backdoor that only lets in the good guys. The backdoor is also going to be open for the bad guys. It's inevitable, and it's a technological fact. So we need to talk to politicians. Yeah? We need to build technologies that protect us and make sure that governments use these and allow us to use them. So there's a big political game. I really think that, for example, the user data manifesto is a great thing. You find it on userdatamanifesto.org. You should sign it, I think. And it tries to define the basic rights that we should have as citizens in the digital age. But that's politics. Now, I'm not much into politics. I'm more of a technology person, at least that's what I'm interested in, what I work on. So that's the other side of things, of course. We need to start building technology that can help protect us. And not every problem you can solve with technology. You need the politicians, but I'll leave that to them. We need to decentralize our data. It shouldn't be all in one place. It shouldn't be all at Dropbox and Google and Apple, at a couple of big companies. It should be at lots of smaller companies or even in our own house. It needs to be decentralized. Because the value of this data is in its aggregate. You must have seen some of these research papers that Facebook did, you know. They could determine, based on the relationships on the network you had, whether you were gay or not. Just from the metadata that they have, the data about who your friends are, they could determine things about people that they did not have public. Now, this is not a problem in a lot of countries, but there are countries in the world where you can get killed for that. Where it's illegal, and even the death penalty is there for being gay. So, having all this data in one place makes it possible to extract information from it that wouldn't be there if all that data wasn't in one place. So purely putting it all in one place is already a problem in itself. Plus, if we decentralize it, we don't just decrease the value of all this information, we also make it, of course, harder to get at. Because, okay, sure, the guys at Dropbox probably are very good at security, and I'm sure that, you know, if we all would try to break in, we'd probably fail. But at some point, somebody is going to break in, because perfect security doesn't exist. And it's a very interesting place to break into, and that has already happened, of course. On the other hand, sure, if I would run a server with my data at home, I'm pretty sure there are people in this room who could break in. I'm not that good at security, I don't know that much about it, and I can't keep an eye on it all the time. But no way that anyone in this room or any group of people will be able to break into all our servers if we would all be running them at home. Because we would all be running them on different versions of different operating systems with different security mechanisms, and even when they get half through us, the rest of us would know that there's a problem and would simply shut down the servers. So by simply decentralizing it, we not only make it less interesting for governments and companies and criminal organizations to try to get our data, but we also make it a lot harder. So this is definitely a way of protecting our data, to decentralize it. Now, it needs to be decentralized. Oh, I already made that point. It needs to be decentralized, it needs to be safe, it needs to be easy to use. whatever technology we find. Well, the backdoors I already pointed out. If you would develop a backdoor into security, then that means you have no security anymore. This actually happened in Greece, by the way. The Greece government built a backdoor system in their telephone communication network. The government wanted to be able to listen in on every single phone call. Well, at some point, the local mafia figured out how to listen in to every phone call. So they started to listen in to phone calls between judges and from criminal prosecutors to judges, and then they started to kill the judges they didn't like. Until, of course, the government figured out that this whole backdoor thing might not have been a great idea. You can't have a backdoor that is only accessible for the good guys. This is something amazingly politicians still don't get. And they keep trying to get backdoors into things for, they say child porn or they say terrorism. I think I already pointed out that it won't help against those things, but it will certainly be abused by criminal organizations and companies and so on. This is serious stuff. So we need to take back our data. And I think you should be convinced by now that although the cloud is really, really awesome, it's also a big problem. And we need to protect our privacy, and we need technology that decentralizes that data that we have, but it still needs to be easy to use, otherwise it's no fun. I mean, you're not going to use it if you lose the benefits of the cloud. I think this is really a key point. If we develop software that protects our data, but it's hard to use and it just doesn't give us the benefits that we need, then, well, we're not going to use it much, are we? This is, in my opinion, the problem with PGP, pretty good privacy, which is a great tool, it's a great technology, but nobody uses it because it's just a pain in the ass. It needs to be easy to use. So one of these technologies is ownCloud. And I mean, I want to point out there are many other technologies out here, but I'm here with a nice ownCloud t-shirt, so I got to talk about it, obviously. And it's a great technology. It offers basically a place where you can put your data, you can sync and share it with, well, your devices and with other people. It ticks all these boxes. It's open source, it is free. You can secure it yourself, run it on your own server. It protects your privacy very well. There's lots of ways of protecting that. So it includes all what we discussed earlier. It works cross-platform. I mean, you can run it on a Linux server, but then you have desktop clients for Windows, Mac, and Linux. You have Android and iOS, Firefox, Yola applications. So you can share your files and have them available on all these devices. It's like an open source version of Dropbox, but more. Because one of the nice things is not just that it has that is multi-platform, but it has this external storage feature. You don't have to move all your files into your own cloud. If you have a NAS at home or if you have FTP drive at the office or at the university, if you run your own cloud at home, you can connect it to the FTP drive, you can connect it to your NAS or to your existing server, and then it'll be able to give you access to those files through your own cloud, make them available on your mobile phones and on your iPads and on every device you have, and available for sharing. But you can still get them directly. You can still use your FTP drive from school if you don't have access to your own cloud there, or for people who don't want to use it for one reason or another. So it gives you all these nice features. I mean, it can access files over WebDev, even over Dropbox. And it has nice abilities like encrypting the files on your storage. Now, if you add that up with external storage, of course, then you can enable encryption. And then you put your data on Google Drive, and it'll be all encrypted, and Google does no longer get at your data, which is pretty nice because it's still very cheap, isn't it? Now you can have your cake and eat it too. I think that's very nice functionality there. So, if friends took pictures at your wedding, they can put it on their own cloud, send you a public link. They can put a password on it if you don't want those pictures to be shared. They can set an expiry date on it, all these nice features. And they can even share it between ownClouds. So you can connect ownClouds. I will get to that later. That's the federation I was talking about earlier. That's really important as well. So it's pretty easy to use, pretty easy to deploy. It's a LAMP stack, so Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. It will work great on that. Now, I don't want to say that running a server is easy, because it's not. I mean, I had needed help to run a server, and I've been using Linux for a decade, more, 15 years by now. So running a server is a bit of a pain, but once you have a server up and running, deploying ownCloud will be easy, because it's a pretty forgiving, server platform. And it's written in PHP, so it's pretty easy to hack and to inspect and to check for security backdoors, perhaps, if you don't trust it. And of course, you can write apps for it, add functionality integrated in your platform. So for companies, it's very interesting, and it's very scalable. I mean, you can run it on a Raspberry Pi at home, but those guys there in Switzerland, they have this big tunnel where they smash atoms into each other. They run ownCloud. And in North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany, there's a bunch of universities. They all run ownCloud. They have connected their ownClouds together, and they have a total of 500,000 students using ownCloud. So if you wonder whether ownCloud scales, the answer is yes, absolutely. From very small to very big. And there are the apps. It's a platform you can build on. So you can create functionality. I mean, there are calendars and contact apps. There's a music player. There's video player apps. There's a password manager app and lots of other applications that can add functionality. This is pretty cool. And of course, it's open source. And you own it. You can check the source code. You can change it. It's fully developed in the open on GitHub under the AGPL license, which is a very good license. Read up on it. There's enterprise options if you need support, phone number to call, a throat to choke, as I say in English. So it's a great solution for the decentralization and protecting the privacy I was talking about earlier. And we have a very big community. We have over 700 people who contributed to ownCloud over the last 4 or 5 years. Over 350 who contributed in the last year alone. So it's a very fast growing project as well. And this also means a lot of people looked at it. So you can trust that a lot of people would have seen it if there were problems with it on a security privacy point. I will skip through the screenshots because I think my time is over, isn't it? All right, well, you can check this all out online if you want. I have one last thing, if you give me a few more minutes, that I want to get to. And that is federation. Now, it used to be the case that if you would build a cloud technology, you would put up a server, then everybody can, connect to that server, and they can, share files with each other, as long as you're on that server, of course. Yeah? But it's all centralized, as I already talked about. This is a problem, right? And performance gets troublesome. It all has to be in one place, and it's a bit of an issue. Now, with technologies like ownCloud, you can run your own cloud. You can run this at your company. You can run this at home or with your friends together maybe. And that's great. It's flexible. It's fast. You don't have all your data in one place. But there's still a pain there with it. You can't really easily share files with other people. You have to either give them an account on your own cloud, or you have to give them a shared link, which means it's hard to collaborate with people across these clouds. You have to basically choose between having your private cloud or having an account on another cloud and putting your data at somebody else's computer. That's not really how it should be. So this is where federation comes in, the ability to connect different clouds with each other, letting them communicate and act like one cloud. And this is a feature that's new. We introduced it in ownCloud 7. We've improved on it in ownCloud 8. And it's going to get a little more attention in ownCloud 8.1. That's coming in about 6 weeks. You basically get kind of an email address, a username at the cloud address, and then you can send files directly from ownCloud in the shared dialog to somebody else on another cloud. They will get a pop-up that says, do you want to accept this share? And they click OK or not. And then they can work with you like the file would be on their own cloud, but it's still on your own cloud. So you stay in control. And the moment that you end the connection, they will no longer have access to the file. So you have your control over it, and still you can work with other people like you're all both on the same cloud. And this is the power of federation. I think it's really important. It gives you all the protection that you need to, protect yourself, basically. Okay, this is it. Trying to get to the final slide. So you can find ownCloud on ownCloud.org. You can even demo it live. Demo.ownCloud.org. You just get an ownCloud web interface and you can play with it, see if it's something you think you can work with. And then, of course, you can get it from ownCloud.org/install. And you can help us out, make it even better. Find out how to write apps or to improve ownCloud on ownCloud.org/contribute. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.